Hello, welcome to Corinne's Picks. I'm here today with the great filmmaker, documentary filmmaker, Andrea DeGeorge-Garbarini, who's written a film, directed a film, a timely film, I might say, about what's happening with migrants in this country, specifically around the New York City area. I've been close to this film since its inception, essentially, and have followed it ever since she started this project. I am just so overwhelmed and thankful that Andrea is back in the Bronx. She's a Bronx native and a graduate of Lehman College, by the way. I'd like to introduce you to her. My name is Daniel Lanzilotta. I'm an environmental artist, also born and raised in the Bronx. And believe me, I am so proud to be here. So let me introduce you to this wonderful documentary filmmaker, Andrea DeGeorge-Garbarini, who has given us a gift called The Arrivals.
Well, thank you, Daniel. That's a very nice introduction. I'm grateful to be here.
How does it feel to be home?
I have not been on this campus in a very long time. I was a graduate of the nursing program here.
Well, it's fantastic that you're here. I'm really proud of us. I'm very proud of the Bronx and what BronxNet brings to the public. I've seen this film essentially from the beginning. Could you just tell me how you came to The Arrivals?
Sure. So in the summer of 2022, in August, I was volunteering through that year and a couple of years before that with migrant families moving through bus stops. We had a program all across the country that greeted migrant families coming through bus stops from the Texas-Mexican border. A lot of the times they had no idea where they were going. We'd have volunteers and bus stops showing them and helping them with their directions to wherever they were going, to sponsor families, to their other families.
Okay.
And we got a notification. I was working at Port Authority, and I'd go down there once in a while and greet these families. And my friend Ilza Thielman, who was the director of Team TLC in New York City, got notified that a bus was coming from Texas. Governor Abbott was sending buses. I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember very well.
Yeah,
Yes.
and they were being sent a lot of times to Washington, D.C., but we hadn't had any come to New York yet. So Ilza Thielman was tipped off that a bus was coming. So Ilza called the city of New York and said, you know, I just want you to know that the buses are going to start coming to New York. And
how many buses were there coming a day?
Well, some days there were 10 of them at a time, but at that moment, the city of New York said, well, good luck to you, and you're the guys who do the volunteer work, and they didn't come. So that morning in August, we got up, 8 women, showed up the bus station at Port Authority and greeted 54 migrants.
That's 54 people times 10?
No, that day was only one bus.
Okay.
So it was 54 migrants came, and when we showed up at the gate where they were coming, there was a whole group of other people there, and it was a news people plus some other, you know, people standing around, and I thought they were volunteers. So we all said, "Hey, are you guys here to help us?" And it turned out it was Fox News. So Governor Abbott tipped off Fox News to film the chaos that was going to happen, but the chaos did not happen because 8 women took charge of what went on that day and got them all, including Adama Ba, who's a very well-known woman that works with the migrant families. We got them all upstairs, we fed them, we got them in Ubers, and we sent them all to the shelters where they were going to be, you know, housed.
Right.
And some of them weren't even supposed to be in New York at that day. There was about 16 of them that weren't even supposed to be in New York, but they were kind of coerced to get on the bus in Texas.
And when those buses are coming, how many children were involved on those buses, and what age range would you say is the most average? Is it a wide spectrum of toddlers, babies?
It was a wide spectrum. A lot of times there would be 22 kids, and then the rest would be adults. I mean, it just varied at times. And unfortunately, that day, one of the children, because I was a former nurse, one of the children, I always asked people, does anybody have any medical problems? Does anybody have one? She was 12 years old, and she had not had her insulin in going on the 4th day. So we were able to get her to Bellevue Hospital right away where she was treated, because that would have not ended well if she wasn't, you know, treated that day.
And that was from August of 22.
Yes.
And then when was the last bus that arrived in New York City at Port Authority?
Well, we were kind of kicked out of Port Authority in 2023, And at the end, when was it, May of 2023? I might be a little bit wrong on the date there, but we were in Port Authority for close to a year and a half, helping these families as they came through. And there were only 3 real organizations that were allowed to stay there. And it was Team TLC, which was our organization, Adama Ba, who was there helping, and Power Malu that
Right.
worked
Power is just an amazing human being.
Yeah, Artists, Athletes, Activists
I
was the
absolutely love
other.
that man.
Yeah,
Yes.
was the other organization that was allowed there.
Right.
But at some days we had over 10 buses coming.
So that's about 540 people a day at that
Not
point?
all the time, but a
Okay.
lot of.
So at that point, when people are coming at those volumes, we're gonna also show a promo of your film in a second. So that volume of people, how would you say that you accomplished feeding them, clothing them, and then sending them off to shelter to have places to sleep? How did you accomplish all this?
Yeah, it was amazing. We had so many volunteers at one point. We were given a storeroom to use at Port Authority because of Ruth Messenger, who is a very well-known New Yorker, was former Manhattan Borough President, got us the storage room there. She actually called the governor to get us that storage room. We had so many donations of clothes. New Yorkers really stepped up to the plate. We had groups called like Rethink Food, delivering food for us, plus many other organizations. And it was a group effort, and it was incredible. I mean, I think at this point, we've had over 3,000 people on our mailing list for Team TLC.
Wow. We're going to cut to a promo now so we can show the public what you're filming, what it looks like.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott has confirmed within the last hour that he is, in fact, sending a bus of migrants here to Philadelphia.
Migrants from Texas are waking up here in Chicago. Immigrants arriving in Denver.
Tonight, there is a growing political battle between Texas and New York.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott sending migrants from his state on a bus to New York City.
Authorities here had no idea they were heading this way.
We got word that a bus containing 54 asylum seekers was going to arrive on Friday, August 5th. They were all going to need a place to go, shelter, food, help.
We already knew what to do. We already had the pieces in place. We've been working with NGOs around the country for years.
As things started heating up, we started getting our network together.
I mean, I've seen your film 3 times now, and that opening shot, that promo, when Power takes the child, that does something to me. It just it speaks to me and the humanity of Power alone. But the film, essentially, for me, is so sensitive and such a great example of what we can do and what needs to be done, and that this film is so timely and so powerful. And that shot of how he takes the child really is heartwarming. And I know that we can do better. And this is a great example of what humanity looks like. That's what humanity looks like. And so I would like for you to, in your own words, tell me what the film has done for you and how has it brought in your experience as a human being.
Well, I always say, you know, I say this to my children too. You know, you won the birth lottery. You just ended up here. You didn't have to do anything to end up in New York or in, you know, they grew up in Westchester County, and that these are all our brothers and sisters. I mean, these are human beings. They have come through horrific conditions to come here. Most of them have come through the Darien Gap, which is this incredible jungle that is beyond comprehension. How to get through that, I don't know how they do it. A lot of times it takes 5 days, sometimes it takes 12 days. People die, they get robbed, women get sexually assaulted.
I've researched that section, and I have to say, I think that whole, just going through that jungle and getting here, and the motivation and the determination to come to a place called America, and what I believe it should be, and what the sign says out on the Statue of Liberty, and what we're going through right now, really reminds me of my own background and my grandparents and their journey here on a boat, and without any anybody saying go back or send them back. This, to me, is really the most powerful. I think this movie should be showed in every public school, every school, and to give children an idea, or parents an idea, what the Darien Gap alone. I mean, it's really rough. And the fact that you've had these folks come that have made that journey is just remarkable to me.
Yeah, and what happens is that people that are not willing to accept what the migrants as they come to our country often look at them as they dehumanize them.
Right.
You know, they're the other person. They're these people over here. And when we dehumanize people, we can do whatever we want to them. We could say whatever we want about them. But this country is based on migration. There were a lot of people that came in at once, and that is true. But if our federal government had a situation where the immigrant process really actually worked, this is a windfall for this country. We are not having as many children as we used to.
Right.
We need workers. So if there was a good relocation program that probably should have been done more at the border, where people were sent instead of just to, the cities that Governor Abbott wanted to target. This is a windfall. These people, all they want to do is work.
Right.
They don't come here, look, I can't speak for everybody, but out of 100,000, there's 99,000 people that want to work. That's all they want to do.
On top of that, they do contribute to the tax.
Which is something that people don't understand.
A lot of people don't understand that they're actually paying taxes, and they're contributing to the greatness of what America is supposed to be. This diversity, to me, is the most remarkable thing. I mean, I'm very diverse genetically myself, so I identify with the
we
cause.
all are.
We all are. But America seems to have a very short memory of its beginning, and what the purpose is of the contributions of all of us. It's all of us.
Right.
And that's the beautiful thing about the film. It's timely, it's important film, and it's really powerful. I'm so proud of it.
Thank you, Daniel. That makes me feel very good. And you know what? What I tried to do is I didn't try to put a lot of political spin on it as much as it shows that 3 small underfunded organizations, we had no money. Ilza Thielman, who's the director of my the organization that I'm part of, it's not my organization, was at one point maxing out her credit card just to buy, food and underwear, and at one point,
Right.
and we had no money. We finally got some grants and things started, getting a little easier. But with that said, it doesn't matter what you agree or disagree with the immigration program. These people were here. They were in front of us, and they needed something. And we were there to give them dignity and respect, and to let them continue on their journey, to get a footing. Look, if they do well, we do well. It doesn't behoove anyone that if they, the problem is it's a failed immigration system.
Right.
So let me just
Understood.
explain to people, when people come to this country, they have to find a lawyer and apply for asylum. So they were allowed to come, they would get, they called it a parole stamp. It's
Right.
not really a parole, it sounds illegal parole, but it's not. They would get a parole stamp. They were here legally. They had these numbers that,
Right.
they were processed at the border. They have to find a lawyer. So that takes months.
And I'm gonna just go to a break here. We're gonna take a PSA break for a few seconds, and we'll be right back with Andrea Garbarini, the director-writer of The Arrivals. Welcome back to Corinne's Picks. I'm here with Andrea Garbarini, the writer-director of The Arrivals, a timely documentary about the migrants that were sent by bus to New York City from Texas, and the onslaught of how many people came and how one person made one remarkable film. And I'd like to just say, there are no illegal human beings.
No.
And I'll hand that over to you to explain so people understand that when they come, they're actually being documented. They're essentially coming in, signing papers, and saying, I'm here. Is that correct?
Well, the people that we saw at Port Authority were processed at the border.
Okay.
So people that we dealt with came in, they were processed at the border, they got what they call an A number, and they were given paperwork. So basically, people don't understand, the system is so broken, and they are always to blame for a system that's not really functioning. So let me just give you an example. Someone comes over the border, they end up in New York City, or wherever they end up. They have to find a lawyer and apply for asylum. Usually they have paperwork that states that they have 1 year to apply for asylum, and that's all they have is 1 year.
Right. So when you say find a lawyer, who's funding that?
Well, exactly. So it's non-for-profit organizations. Most of these people do not have $7,000. That is probably the minimum cost to really get a lawyer that will represent them. So what they do is they look for pro bono help. And we were instrumental in getting pro bono help for people that would be part of that were in our system. So now that takes months. After they apply for asylum, they have to wait 150 days to apply for working papers.
So in that interim of 150 days, they're not legally allowed to work. Is that what you're saying?
So
how does one deal with that reality?
Well, a lot of them were in our shelter system and in the hotels in New York. I'm just talking from New York, and they're not allowed to do anything. So here they are, dying to work, desperate for working papers, and they can't get them. So once they get 150 days, then they have to apply for the working papers, and then it takes sometimes 30, 60, another 90 days to get the working papers. And what happened was these people were often, at one point, being kicked out of the shelter system and the hotels. Then their mail would get lost. So I had one family that I was, just helping and guiding with all this stuff, and his papers kept getting lost. So he was actually waiting for his working papers, but because he was kicked out of 3 hotels and shelters with his family and kept having to move, it took much longer to get the papers.
Right. Where are we right now under the current administration, and what's happening with ICE, and how is that affecting what's going on and what you've done?
I mean, things keep changing, and right now, I mean, the system is still that you can apply for working papers after a certain period of time. But temporary protective status is being stopped for a lot of these, groups of people like Venezuelans, Haitians, Cubans, Nicaraguans.
Right.
They all had gotten temporary protective status, and this present administration is stopping that.
Right.
So it depends on how long you're here. It gets very complicated, and I don't want to say the wrong thing because I'm not a lawyer, but things change. And, basically, there's a lot of limitations. If you had applied for asylum already, right, and you're waiting for, your court dates, you theoretically are doing the right thing and you require due process. But what's happening in the downtown right now is that people are doing the right thing. They're showing up for their court appointment, dates. They're walking out, and then they're being arrested.
Yeah, I've been following all of this. This is very disturbing on so many levels, and due process sort of gone out the window.
Well, I mean, they're showing up to do the right thing, right? And they think that they're doing the right thing. They're checking in, whether, and then they're being taken away. So it's really inappropriate, and it's very sad because these are the people that are doing the right thing. Just to tell you, DHS, Department of Homeland Security, sent out a letter about 3 months ago, a threatening letter to 900,000 people that came in here legally. There was a program called the CBD-1, where they applied before they even got into this country. They got an appointment. They were allowed in, waiting for their court dates. And the letter told them, if we are revoking your parole, and if you already applied for asylum, that doesn't, it's not.
That was that around the self-deportation?
Yeah, so basically the point is, if you applied for asylum, you were actually safe. I know it gets complicated, but people don't know that. So they get a letter or an email stating that you need to leave this country within 7 days.
Well, that's a strategy of fear.
Exactly. Or the government will find you. I mean, it's an incredible letter. So we had people from Afghanistan that I work with up in Westchester County and in the city were terrified. They can't go home. These people cannot go home. A lot of them cannot go home. Not all, but a lot. Could you imagine having to go back to Afghanistan?
I can't imagine this on so many levels, but this is a plan this is all by design, and most of the time I don't get too political about it as an activist myself and working around environmental issues. But this is all planned. It's out in the open. It's very clear what's going on, and it needs to be addressed. And people like you. And Elza and Adama and Power. I mean, fantastic things that you guys have done. The film really needs to be out there. And I think this mechanism here at BronxNet and being a guest host here at Corinne's Picks is a mechanism to bring awareness to you. This is really the crux of it, to educate people about the reality of their status. Right, as you said, that people think they're all just coming here illegally without saying, I'm here, I want to do the right thing.
Exactly, and what's happening is that there is always a person behind every policy. And I tried with the film to put a human side on the face of immigration. And basically, we just need to be fair. And we need to, if we have certain situations where people are going and doing the right thing in the courts, they should not be whisked away. The Trump administration came in saying that they were going to get rid of all the criminals, and that's all vague too. I mean, what does that mean?
Well, that feeds into his folks that are leeching off his insanity. But the reality is that everyone here is illegal, if you want to get crazy about it. But the system definitely is broken. With films like this and people like you can absolutely make a difference.
Right, and I don't think anybody would disagree that if you had violent criminals being removed from this country, that's something that I think that's what unfortunately his what he had to say, people fed into that.
Well, the irony of it is, as a criminal talking about people who are not criminals,
right? But
and trying to make this look worse than what it is.
Yeah.
What is it that we can do? What can we do? How can you educate us about the things that are available to the public and others, organizations, to further this along in a way that people are feeling better about being here?
Well, basically, you can volunteer, and we have our 3 organizations, and I can give you, information that maybe we can put up if they will,
yes,
want to know
yes.
What you can do. And basically, there are so many organizations around the city, but Power Malus, artists, athletes, activists, always needs volunteers.
Right.
You do not have to speak another language. People are intimidated, but you can come and help. Adama Ba has her organization Africana up in Harlem.
Where is that exactly?
That's on Lenox Avenue. I don't know the exact address.
Is it around 145th Street?
Yes.
Okay.
But
that's a permanent space?
Yes.
Okay.
But she's always needing help, whether it's working in the mailroom, because she has a mailroom where actually people can receive mail,
that's
and that's how they become part of society, just receiving a piece of mail.
Right.
So Adama Ba, Team TLC NYC is our organization. Right. We just opened up another location where we're focusing not on clothing, which we did initially, but we're doing legal services, English as a second language. We're doing helping with job placement, Metro cards that can be given at a discount, and mental health services. I think we ignore the mental health services.
That's a very important aspect of it, I would imagine.
There's a lot of trauma.
The stress of this must really get to folks. I mean, I can't imagine that with what's going on, having to go out on the street, worrying about if you're going to be
Yeah.
snatched up, kidnapped, and whisked off to someplace that's way unpleasant. Yeah, I would imagine that mental health is a big part of the issue.
Yes, and I think a lot of them are traumatized, and just their journey here was extremely traumatizing for a lot of people. Like I've mentioned before, the Darien Gap or whatever went on, on their journeys. They're robbed constantly when they're coming through, a lot of these countries. And yes, there's a lot you can do. There's many organizations in the city. The 3 organizations I'm mentioning are the 3 organizations that are near and dear to me. Yeah, and if you'd like to do a community screening of this film.
How can we get in touch with you?
Well,
we're going to wrap up in a few seconds here. Where can we get in touch? Where can we see the film? Is being shown anywhere soon?
Well, basically, I'm working on some more community screenings. I have a few churches and synagogues that are excited. I have a Instagram, Andrea DeGeorge-Garbarini. If you go on my Instagram, I'm going to be posting future screenings.
Place, time,
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
I will
Is there a
definitely
website
do.
that we can go to?
Right now, I'm working on a website because I am pathetic when it comes to promoting myself. But I'm working on that. I have the Instagram. I'm working on a website. And you can contact me at my email, Andrea DeGeorge-Garbarini.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Andrea. Thank you for making this wonderful, wonderful film. Thank everyone who participated, Power, Adama, everyone who touched the film has done something really terrific. I'm Daniel Lanzilotta. I'd like to thank everyone at BronxNet for having me as a guest host, Corinne's Picks. And